Dude, I heard screaming. Is everything... Whoa.
Jay, what the hell is happening? Why are my hands on fire?
Well, first of all, it's not fire.
What?
It's not fire. It's dark energy.
Oh, it's dark matter. Yeah, that makes... Wait a minute, did you know about this?
Why is it red?
Dude,
Well,
I knew it. I knew you knew about this. Dude, what the hell?
well, look, in my defense, I had no idea that you would get powers too.
Wait, what?
Seriously though, why is it red?
Jay, focus. Can your hands do the fire?
Dark energy.
Whatever. Do you have powers too? Well? Oh, what the f?
Hello. I hope you enjoyed that skit. It was a lot of fun to make. Do me a favor, like this video if you did enjoy that. Today, what we're gonna do is peel back the curtain. I'm gonna show you every single thing that went into making that skit. Everything from coming up with the idea to scripting and pre-production and filming and editing in DaVinci Resolve. I'm gonna show you all of it. Originally, I was just gonna show you like few parts of the editing side, more specifically that fire effect. But I figured, you know what? Let's just show them everything. Let's do it all. Screw it. Because let's be honest, making videos by yourself is hard enough when you're just doing a talking head video like this or a vlog. When you start adding in storyboards and scripts and multiple characters, it becomes, it's a lot. Like that video, that 72 seconds of video took 20 hours to make from start to finish. That's a lot of work. Also, I could sit here and tell you how I made that video. Let me tell you, anybody who says being a YouTuber is an easy job doesn't know shit about being a YouTuber. Now, I'm gonna talk about a lot of stuff. I'm gonna talk about a lot of different products that I use, a lot of different websites that I go to, and none of them are sponsoring this video. This video is completely 100% unsponsored. All the stuff that I do mention will be linked in the description below though, and some of those links are affiliate links, but they will be marked by a tiny little asterisk on there. So make sure you check those out if you so choose. And also, I want to do a lot more of these on the channel. I want to do a lot more skits, a lot more of these production breakdowns, and I'd like to maybe involve you guys, maybe have you be a part of the skit in some way. So if you want to see more of these little skits, more of these production breakdowns, and maybe get a chance to act in one of them, or maybe even help me edit one of them, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have that bell rung so you don't miss your chance. I mean, apparently only 15% of you are subscribed to this channel. So, you know, what's up with that? All right, let's start with how I came up with the idea for this video. It kind of came in fragments. Like I knew that I wanted to do something with the clone because it had been a while and it's always a lot of fun doing something with the clone, but I knew that the videos with the clones are the best when myself and my clone are at odds with each other. So I knew I needed to come up with some sort of weird, crazy plot. And also I've been watching a lot of superhero movies lately. So then that just gave me the idea to give the clone a superpower and see what happened. So I had the idea, I came up with the idea, but I didn't have a story yet. I needed to figure out what was actually going to happen in the story. What was this story going to be about? And let me tell you, fitting a story into 72 seconds of video is not easy. You somehow have to intrigue the audience and get them hooked so they'll watch through to the end and not get bored, and find a way to leave the viewer with some kind of satisfaction by either making them laugh or scaring them a little bit or whatever. It's a lot of pressure to put a story together in that short of a video. Now, I knew that I wanted to make this story about my clone discovering that he had a superpower, but I didn't feel like having him walk up to me and be like, dude, I have superpowers was going to be strong enough to hook the audience. It needed to be a little bit deeper than that. I wanted to create some intrigue, so I decided that I would have me already know about the superpowers, but I wanted to be a little bit vague about how exactly I knew about those superpowers until the very end. And at that moment, the story kind of switched from being about a guy with superpowers to being about a guy with a secret, which is a lot more intriguing, and it added a little bit more depth to the story. And for those of you sitting there saying, well, I knew it all along, well, keep in mind this video is 72 seconds long, so I don't know, congrats on knowing something for less than 2 minutes, I guess. So at this point, I've got the idea. I have some sort of notion about what the story is going to be, and now it's time to start putting it together in a script. And for all of this stuff, I was using an app called Notion, which I think is one of the best project management tools out there for creatives. I also use Tascade a lot. I switch back and forth because I can't decide on which one I like better. But for Notion, I actually have a template that was sent to me from Dunna Did It. He sent me a template when he did his video about how he uses Notion, and it's got all sorts of stuff that makes it super easy to put a script into a project or do a shot list or research and notes and all that stuff. And it's exactly what I needed for this project. So we used Notion. So I started writing a script and I just wrote down everything that came to mind. I wrote down an interaction between me and my clone and just tried to imagine it playing out in real life. And I would revise things and delete things and I just kept working on it until I had a fairly solid script that I would end up mostly following when I went to go film this thing. And then once I actually had a script down, it was easier for me to visualize what I wanted this thing to look like. So I got to work making a shot list. And this was actually the easiest part of pre-production because of a few factors. One, it was just me in the video. Two, I was only going to use one camera. And three, I was really, really short on time, which means I basically only had time for one camera angle for each scene. I also knew that I was going to be filming in 12-bit 6K RAW and throwing that into a 4K timeline, which means I could punch in. So I figured if I just got a medium shot of all the characters, then I could just punch in and pan and zoom whenever I needed to in order to get a different camera angle. So really, my shot list consisted of medium shot of the clone, medium shot of me, and my typical talking head setup, which I used for the intro. So I just threw that small little 3-shot checklist into Notion, into the shot list page, and then I moved on, and it was time to decide how I actually wanted this to look as far as color was concerned. And I knew I wanted to make this thing look like a superhero movie, but not like a pretty polished Marvel superhero movie, right? I wanted it to be dark and gritty. So I actually settled on a look based off of Justice League, because say what you want about the movie, you cannot argue with me when I say that movie looks amazing. So I headed over to Shot Deck, which is where I get all of my reference images. It's great because not only do you get the images, but you also get all of the camera information from the production of the movie. So I headed over to their selection on Justice League and I grabbed a couple reference stills, and then I copied all of the camera information into the research and notes page of my video template in Notion. And after that, it was time to film. All right, before we actually get into the filming techniques and how I set everything up, let's take a look at what I actually set up. Let's take a look at the gear. We all love gear, right? Let's talk about the gear. I filmed everything on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K with the Canon EFS 17-55 f2.8 lens. And on that lens, I had a Tiffin quarter black Pro Mist filter and a Tiffin variable ND. And I also had the battery grip on the camera because the normal battery for the camera gives me like 20 minutes of footage, but that battery grip extends that to 2 hours. So, battery grips are good. For audio, I use the D80S Mic 2S, which is a short little shotgun mic that I use for all of my videos. And I had that on a microphone stand with a short boom arm, and it was connected directly into the camera via the mini XLR jack. And yeah, that was audio. There was no redundancies. I probably should have had some, but I like living on the edge. And then in order to make sure that I was in focus and in frame the whole time, I had my FeelWorld F6 4K monitor attached to a light stand with an HDMI cable that was long enough to be able to move it wherever I wanted, and I just kept that slightly out of frame so I could always see myself while I was filming. And then I connected the M1 iPad Pro to the Pocket 6K and used the Bluetooth Plus app in order to set my white balance and pull focus, since the Pocket Cinema cameras don't have continuous autofocus, which would have been a huge help in this video. And then for lighting, I used the sun because my normal lighting did absolutely nothing outside because it was in the middle of the day. By the way, did I mention that I filmed this thing like at noon on a sunny day, which is like the worst possible time to film a video? Yeah, that happened. All right, so once I had everything set up and on their stands, I set everything up so I could film myself standing by the door outside. That's what I shot first. It was the easiest to shoot because I had the camera fairly close to me and I was also in the shade, which meant I had nice even lighting on my face and no crazy, weird shadows. The only thing is I kept in mind that the last time I recorded a conversation between myself and my clone, I made the mistake of staring at the camera almost the entire time, and a lot of people commented on that. So what I did to safeguard against that was I set up a monopod in the spot where I knew my clone would be standing, and I set it up so the monopod was like eye level, and I just made sure to stare at that thing every time that I was talking. I also had my script on my phone, which I kept in my pocket, and I just whipped it out every time that I forgot my line, which actually happened more than you might expect for a 72-second video. So all in all, filming me was fairly easy. Like I said, I was in the shade, I had nice even lighting, the camera was fairly close to me so I could get the microphone close to me and get good audio. It was really easy. It was a dream. But filming my clone was a totally different story. Setting up for filming the clone was a little bit more difficult than setting up to film my parts because I wanted to have the camera set up where I had been standing previously so I could get the right camera angle. But that means the camera was far away from me and it was hard to get the microphone close to me in an overhead position without it being in frame. So I ended up booming myself from underneath, which there's nothing wrong with that. It just didn't give me quite the quality of audio that I really wanted. I don't know if you guys could tell or not, but it's something that I wish I could have done better. Maybe if I had a lavalier mic, or maybe if I just ignored the idea of having the camera set up where it was set up and I moved it closer to me. Who knows? But it's just, you know, that's what happened. Also, it was like noon. The sun was directly overhead, which is why I had raccoon eyes and the crazy shadows. But I had an impending family visit and I was short on time, so I just kind of ran with it. But everything else was basically the same, and unless you count the fact that I kept having to redo my lines because my neighbors were getting the siding replaced on their house, it went, you know, kind of smoothly. And then after that, it was time to film the easiest part of the video, which was me inside. I wanted to just set this up so it looked like my normal talking headshot. So I set up my lighting the way that I always set it, except for I changed the color. Usually I have more of that greenish teal. This time I went more towards blue because it was going to be easier for me to get the look that I wanted with color grading. But everything else was exactly the same. I had the camera set up where I always have it set up. I just made sure that my keyboard was in frame so that I could punch in and show myself typing on the keyboard. Originally, I had actually shot something with my DJI Pocket 2. I did a little overhead shot of me typing, but I forgot to make sure that it was in focus. So always have a backup plan. I also did a screen recording of me typing up an email to an imaginary email address because I knew I was going to cut to that during the intro, and I, made sure to clap a few times. That way, if I needed to, I could perfectly sync up the keystrokes on the screen with my fingers. So all in all, the filming went fairly smoothly. It was just 3 quick scenes and following a script. But even with all of that, there are a few things that I wish I would have done differently. First of all, I wish that I would have filmed at like golden hour or something, because 1, it wouldn't have been so hot and I wouldn't have been sweating so much. 2, the sun wouldn't have been directly overhead and I wouldn't have had those crazy raccoon eyes. But like I said, I was running short on time and I needed to get this thing done. So I just did what I had to do. Also, I would have definitely moved the camera closer to me when I was filming the clones part of the video, because I don't really think that having the camera where it was really made all that big of a difference. I probably could have made it work by having the camera a little bit closer to me. And then lastly, I would have not moved my arms so much when I was filming the clothes part of the video. We'll talk about why that is a little bit later in this video, but I mean, really, the fact that I moved my arms so much, I mean, you guys know me, I talk with my hands, but this really made it difficult in editing. So after I got all of my footage organized, I created a project in DaVinci Resolve. I brought all my footage in, I created a timeline, and I got to work putting my story together. And I started with the intro. The key there was just to make sure that the pacing was right and to make sure that the camera angles weren't too repetitive. Remember, it was all one single camera angle. It was just a medium shot on the camera, and I just had to punch into my face or punch into the typing of the keyboard, maybe cut to the screen recording and all that stuff. It was just making sure that everything, the pacing was right. It wasn't too long, wasn't too drawn out, and it was just long enough to hook the audience. And that's what I was going for. Let me know in the comments if I actually pulled that off. Also, quick fun fact about the intro, all of the audio, like even the typing of the keyboard, that was added in post. There was a lot of noise going on in my house and I didn't want that bleeding through into the video. So I just cut all the audio and recreated it using room tone and some keyboard sound effects. Also, the titles in the intro, those were just the digital glitch write and digital glitch titles from DaVinci Resolve's own effects library. There was nothing special there. I just changed the font, changed the color, and I was done. And then when I was done with the intro, I started cutting together the conversation, and the whole goal there was just to follow the guidelines that I set out in my video about cutting conversations between two people. I'll have that link below. You should definitely check that out. But the general overview is basically cut to the other person whenever somebody would normally turn their head to look at the other person. And that's what I tried to follow. I tried to make sure that there was overlapping dialogue and just make sure that everything flowed at the right space. I definitely cut some things out that didn't need to be there and made the video a little bit shorter than it originally was, but I thought that it made the story flow a little bit better and it didn't lose the audience. And then after I cut the footage, it was time to work on the effects. Now I got all of the visual effects, all of those energy bursts from Action VFX. And again, they're not sponsoring this video, but I do want to talk about them for just a little bit because I do think that they really are the best place to get Hollywood level visual effects that you don't have to build yourself. And they just launched a subscription that gives you unlimited access to their entire library, which is huge because you used to have to pay hundreds of dollars for a pack of effects from them. So this is actually really big. And if you do a lot of visual effects work or you're looking to add more visual effects to your videos, I would definitely take a look at their new subscription plan. It's all linked below. Definitely check them out. Highly recommend them. Plus, those guys are super, super cool. I talked to them on the emails quite a bit. Now, the only problem with the effects that I got from Action VFX was the fact that they were just too short. The clips that I was going to need to apply them to were longer than the effects clips themselves. So I opened up a new timeline and I did a little bit of layering and offsetting. And by stacking the effects on top of each other, I ended up creating one like 15-second long energy burst that I exported with an alpha channel as a 10-bit ProRes file. And then I brought that into DaVinci Resolve and I cut it up and I put it where it needed to be in the timeline. And then I made fusion clips out of all of the places where they needed to go. So when that was all done, I had about 6 fusion compositions that I needed to put together, and they all had the same purpose. I needed to change the clone's energy bursts to red, and I needed to track them with the motion of the hands. So I used a planar tracker to track the motion of both my hands and created planar transforms in order to give that motion to the energy balls. Then I connected them all to merge nodes. I changed the blend mode of those merge nodes to screen in order to get rid of the black lines around the effect. And then finally, I used transform and color corrector nodes in order to make the energy balls the right size and shape. And then to finish everything up, I turned on motion blur in the planar transforms and those transform nodes, and that made all the motion look a little bit more natural and made it look like those energy balls were actually part of the footage that I shot. I will be doing a much more detailed tutorial in Fusion about how I did all of that. So, you know, again, make sure you're subscribed. Now, I will be the first to admit that I am not the strongest when it comes to Fusion, and I definitely struggled with this part of the edit, especially when it came to the planar tracker. And this is why I wish that I kept my hands still while I was filming the clone, because all of that motion blur made it really hard for the planar tracker to track my hands. But I did eventually figure it out, and yeah, I felt very good about myself after that. And then once all of the Fusion compositions were done, I headed over to the color page and started color grading. First thing I did was create groups for all of the footage of me standing by the door outside, and groups for all of the clone footage, and then groups for all of the intro footage. Then, using the reference data that I got from ShotDeck, I used a color space transform in order to bring all of my footage into an Arri Alexa color space. Then I used film convert nitrate in order to get the right film emulation. And then finally, I used the reference stills that I snagged from ShotDeck in order to steal the look from Justice League. And yes, I will be doing a full video about how to steal the look from your favorite movies in DaVinci Resolve. So you know what to do. All right. Let's move on to audio. So for audio, I got everything from the sound effects to the music to the Foley. Everything that is in this video, I got from Artlist. Even that scream that you heard at the beginning of the video, that wasn't me screaming. That would make my neighbors think that I was crazy. I actually grabbed that scream from Artlist. And finding that stuff was actually super easy because I already knew what I was looking for. Sometimes you go into Artlist or Epidemic Sound or Soundstripe or whatever, and you don't really know what you're looking for, and you're just kind of browsing, and that just drives me nuts. So thank you, pre-production process, because I knew everything that I needed already. Now, I knew what I wanted this video to sound like. I knew I wanted it to sound like kind of a creepy sci-fi video in the beginning and make you think that maybe this wasn't a comedy, and then we would switch over to comedy when we got outside. So I got some nice atmospheric tones and some drones and that scream and all of that stuff. I snagged that for the intro. Then I grabbed some fire sound effects for the energy burst and some nice outdoor Foley to help smooth out the cuts between dialogue. And really, when it comes to audio, there's only a few things that I would consider special. First was the keyboard sounds. I got those from Artlist as well. And I cut up that keyboard sound effect. It was a whole long clip, and I cut it up in order to time the typing from my fingers up with the sound effect. I just timed it up perfectly, so every time I clicked a button or every time a letter showed up on screen, you would hear a click. That was, well, that was kind of a pain in the butt, but it was kind of fun too. Also, I made sure to change the pitch of that scream in the beginning so it actually sounded like I might sound if I was out on the back porch screaming like a maniac. But other than that, it was really just a matter of putting the right sound effect in the right place. After that, it was on to mixing. And for mixing, I did a few things. First thing I did was I leveled out the dialogue clips between myself and my clone because they were a little bit off, and then I added them to a bus so I could easily put all of the dialogue into the mix at once, and I used the EQ and the dynamics on that bus in order to give myself a low pass and a high pass filter and do a little bit of compression. And then for the sound effects and Foley, I didn't do a whole lot. I mixed the levels so everything sounded good together, and then I dropped the 1K hertz frequency on the fire effects so that it wouldn't get in the way of the dialogue. And then once I was done with the audio, I rendered the video out. I watched it obsessively about 8,700 times. I sent it to a friend. I watched it another couple hundred times, and then I started putting this breakdown together, which I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this gave you some useful information. Maybe it gave you some ideas on how you could make a short film on your own. And if so, give this video a like. Let me know in the comments what you thought, because I want to do a lot more of these. And in the meantime, check out this video right here, because honestly, I think you're really gonna like it. So, you know, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.